Welcome to the Knitty Stew podcast. My name is Leanne. I am the Knitty Stew. Stew, if you are new, stands for stewardess. I am a Canadian flight attendant and a knitter, and this is my YouTube channel where I bring you with me on the road, usually to overnight cities that I have the privilege of flying to as part of my job. And today I am back in a location that is by far my favorite place in Canada to stay overnight, and that is St. John's, Newfoundland. And I was looking back at my history, and I was here on my 5th Knitty Stew episode, and then 4 months ago I was here as well, and I just took like a cinematic video. This place is magic, and I really enjoyed my day here today, so I wanted to sit down and podcast because I like to not go too long between episodes. It gets overwhelming to be catching up of like, what have I been working on? Although I've only got 2 finished objects to show you today, but I have some chit chat, and the objects that I do want to talk about I feel very proud of, and I'm excited to also announce a knit along that I have going on. I've got some works in progress, and I'm feeling festive, like I'm feeling the vibes towards Christmas. And how in the world is it November already? Like, it's just blowing my mind how fast time passes. And I know it's cliche to say that, but it's just, well, there goes my camera. It's very, very evident to me that time is just speeding up as I get older and older. So yeah, I did a flight out here last night. It was the red eye, as it generally is. So I landed here Newfoundland time at 7:38 a.m., which is 3.5 hours. It's got its own time zone out here from back home, so in Calgary, where I'm from. And I had a really decent 3-hour nap, and then I went out on the town. So it's overcast, moody. I tried to film flipped the other way so that you could see what's out this window. So I'm going to turn it around so you can have a look, and then I'll explain why I couldn't film this direction. So that's my view. I feel like this place is a little piece of heaven. And at this time of year, it's, you know, it's November 1st. This wouldn't be unheard of that there would be snow here at this time, but it is very dark. And when I was filming and trying to keep the, pardon me, keep the view behind me, it was just way too dark. So I had to flip the camera. So I'm going to flip it back. Yeah, so it was just too dark and shadowy for me to film with that in the background, but I'll throw some footage in of my day here today. I did venture out a little bit to check out a little cozy yarn corner, and it was really great to get out because it's someone's dream to have a yarn shop. And I saw it posted on a friend of a friend's Instagram that this person had opened this little location, and I ventured down. It was only a 10-minute walk. Today it is 7 degrees here Celsius, so that's 44 Fahrenheit for anyone in the United States that's watching. Yeah, it might be a bit rambly because I haven't really reviewed too much of what I'm going to talk about. I will put in the administration information, which is, if you like the content that you see here today, if you jive with my knitting and you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps the channel to grow, and it's just a beautiful community here. If you read the comments underneath these videos, you will see how heart-filling it is to create these videos for everyone and to be part of a community. Anyways, I hope you're all doing well. Yeah, like I said, it's November 1st, and yeah, wow. I'm having a smoothie. I tend to bring frozen, it's fruit, and there's kale in there, and there's coconut milk and protein powder, and I freeze these, and then they slowly melt in my lunch kit, or not melt, but they thaw so that I can drink them, and it's good nutrients. And I feel like this is something that I don't know if I'd survive on the road without my protein smoothies. So that's what I'm having today. After the video, I will probably venture across the street and get myself some chowder. I mean, in Newfoundland, you gotta have seafood chowder. And there's lots of great places just around this hotel where we are. So that's my plan. Also planning to go to bed super early because I have to do the Head Start flight out of here back west to back home. So anyways, knitting content. I hope you'll cozy in with me and listen as I discuss my finished objects, the first of which I am wearing, and I wore all over St. John's today. This is the Fleur shawl. I knit it as part of the Fleur Along hosted by Jackie and Carmen of Knitting a Good Yarn podcast. I showed the yarn, I believe, in my last podcast, and this thing knit itself. I love this thing so much. I'll go up close and then I'll go back. It is a free pattern by Espace Tricot, originally written by Melissa Clulow. And I made the version that was modified by Jackie, who made it into a crescent shape versus a triangular shawl. I gotta get way back here. Just because for me, I'm more of a crescent shawl person generally, because it kind of turns into a bit of a cowl, as you saw how I was wearing it. Although I do like the triangular shawl when I wear it forward, because then I can tuck it into my jacket. So I don't know what type of shawl person I am. I can tell you I am definitely a fan of the wool, and the combination of these two things is just absolutely delicious. So here's the scoop. I used a fingering weight yarn and a beautiful brushed baby Surrey alpaca held together. These are both from Crux Fibers. I had the privilege of going up to Whitehorse, where Brittany of Crux Fibers dyes yarn, and she curates this low mileage wool, it's called. And the reason is that it's traceable from the flock right to the mill, and the whole process is all happening within Canada, and it's just glorious stuff. So this here, I bought 3 skeins of. As my friend Sarah from Fiber Check would say, it's soulful stash. I was up in Whitehorse in Brittany's yarn room, and I was like overwhelmed at how much I love these two things together. So this white one here it's from the Spring 2023 clip. It's Gotland and BFL crossbreeds, fingering weight. There is approximately 263 meters, 288 yards per 100 grams, so fingering weight. And it's all the sheeps, they're raised in Crossfield, Alberta? No, Caroline, Alberta, by Crocus County Shepherdess. And they're just happy sheep make happy wool. And I actually only needed to use, I bought 3, but only used 2, not quite, actually 1, and then this is left of the second, and this is the 3rd ball. Because I think of the modification of this pattern, not doing the triangular shawl. So that's that. And then it really is all about the wool. I mean, the pattern is classic and lovely, and I did baubles, so I'm excited to talk about that. But the story is really about this brushed baby Surrey alpaca, so it's 25% mulberry silk core and 75% brushed baby Surrey alpaca in the ptarmigan colorway. So I loved every minute of knitting this. I took it with me on our holiday. My husband and I went down to Tulum, Mexico for a week, and in the 37 degrees weather, I was knitting on mohair and wool. I didn't care. I was like, this is so glorious. And it flew off my needles. It literally took me 12 days. Yep, 12 days from start to finish. I made it on a US 8 5mm needle, and I found Andrea Mowry's bobble. I was intimidated by this bobble action. Andrea Mowry has a YouTube channel, and she has some tutorials where she showed making, I did the 3-stitch bobbles instead of the 5, and you knit backwards, so you don't actually turn your work in the way she demonstrates it. And so my first round of bobbles, my first round of bobbles, which were right at the top here. So you do like a garter tab cast on. And then my first row, they're okay. They're not bad. They're a little bit, there's a little bit of a gapey hole on either side. But then I only did a second row. I mean, this shawl, I kind of just went all like till I thought it was done and good. I didn't follow it to any specification stitch count. And I think row 2 of my bobbles were a bit more consistent and very bobbly and happy. And I was joking that I could have knit this thing faster if I didn't have to stop every, 5 or 10 stitches and be like, oh my gosh, this is so pretty, so pretty. The blending of the Surrey and the natural white Cecil and Mora is the colorway of this. And yeah, I enjoyed every single stitch of it. I put all these notes and everything that I do into the notes underneath the videos, and you can link if you're on Ravelry. Ravelry is my place of like keeping all my information. I've done that forever, so I'm gonna stick with that habit, because if I make something and I love it, I want to make it again. I do that. Would I make this again? Yep, I certainly would. Garter stitch, and then all you do is some simple increasing because of the crescent shape. Jackie has you just increasing on the right side only, instead of increasing in the middle as well, which would give you the V shape of the triangle. Oh, it was super fun. So that's my first finished object. I'm going to keep wearing it because there's 0 itch factor and it's cozy, and my shirt is plunging a lot. So I'm going to keep this on. So that's finished object number 1. I do have one more story around the Fleur shawl. I would be remiss if I didn't share it with you, because I wanted to share a tool. Okay, garter stitch. Yes, how satisfying is it? But you know what isn't satisfying is if you make a mistake. So I made a mistake in my garter stitch, one of the rows, which was when I think I was probably like a quarter of the way in early on. And I was like, I won't notice it. It's fine. It's fine. And then I was like, okay, I need to stop going farther, because I know myself and my eye will go straight to that garter stitch error. And it is hard to fix garter stitch. I was watching some videos. Whenever I need techniques, I usually check out Very Pink Knits. And I went to her video and I watched it, and I dropped down. It took me a long time, but what saved the day was this little doohickey. And I apologize, I do forget where I got it, but it's a double-ended crochet hook, because to fix garter stitch, you have to lift the legs in one direction on the front, and then on the back, you have to lift it back up on the other side. So as a result of having this double-ended crochet hook, I was able to fix it on the right side, pull through, and then just fix it on the other side and then pull through. I don't know if that makes sense, but this little tool kept me from losing my marbles, and it fixed the error in the garter stitch shawl. Okay. All right. Next up, finished object number 2. I was craving a pair of fingerless mittens, and I made this pair here. This is called the Brickletown mitts, and it's a pattern I'd made before 10 years ago. It turns out it's from Elizabeth Doherty, Blue Bee Studio, and I think they're just stunning, and I do remember how much I loved making them. I made my sister a pair, and it's out of fingering weight yarn. So that I was also craving, I wanted to knit with my Woolen Twine Fiber Studio. I had purchased this, I believe it was last summer, in one of her shop updates. Eula, she lives in northern Germany, and she natural dyes beautiful natural wool. And this is her 4-ply fingering weight BFL Massam, 75% BFL and 25% mid brown Masham in the walnut colorway. And this stuff glows. This stuff glows. So I was like, that's the combination I'm looking for. So I think they turned out fabulous. What I did was I knit them tandem. So I knit them both at the same time using, and I know they might not be everybody's jam, but I actually enjoyed knitting them on my little 9-inch circulars. These are US 1 2.25 millimeter needles, and I just had them separated. So I had the left mitten with its own ball of yarn in a project bag, and then my right mitten with its own little ball in another. And I would knit a few rounds on the left mitt, and then I would pick up the right one. And I mean, it's simultaneous knitting, and it just made it go super quick. And what I wanted to mention about this pattern, and I do remember this from the first time I made it 10 years ago, and it was that she is very much a chart person. So her pattern it refers you to the chart for the cable and for the texture with some writing. Now, my favorite thing about this pattern was on the chart next to a round where there's other things going on. So for example, when it's time to start increasing for the thumb gusset, she uses symbols on next to the chart. So she has these little, like a triangle. There's a triangle. I better make sure I'm paying attention to know what to refer to in the written part of the pattern. So I really, really like that about it. This pair of mittens was only 28 grams. I mean, I can't actually get over that. It's kind of blowing my mind, and I had to weigh everything and weigh it again. But I have, this woolen twine skein of yarn is 400 meters per 100 grams. And I have, what have I got left? Like, yeah, so like I've got about 69 grams left after making a pair. I could make 2 more pairs. But I'm good on cable and texture for a minute. This wasn't difficult, I wouldn't say, by any means. It's just being able to read your work is very helpful. And what I did with the circular knitting is for the top part of the pattern, I placed a stitch marker. And then when it switches to the palm side of the chart, which after this part, it's just stocking that until you get to the top. And I just separated them front and back. You could do magic loop, you could do double pointed needles, but I wore them all around town today, and this is a pattern that I think I would make again. And the reason is I like a negative ease fingerless glove. I just find that's very wearable, and I made the ribbing at the top a little bit longer than the pattern called for, just by extending the ribbing here versus the purl stitches, and then this little twisted stitch. It's consistent, so by the time you've done this much of the glove with this twisted right twist stitch, yeah, you can see when it's coming. There's supposed to also be right twists on the thumb, but I just did 7 rounds of ribbing and 6 or 7 rounds of ribbing. And funny enough, I actually knitted them both at the same time, but the right one is slightly looser for some reason. But that's okay, my right hand I think is a bit larger, but yeah. So if you're craving a fingerless mitten pattern, this one by Elizabeth Doherty, I would recommend. I started it October 19th and I finished it on October 27th. So yeah, so I don't know how I managed to make it out of 28 grams, to be honest. So the last time I made them, I believe I used significantly more, but I also had used sport weight for the pair, and I gave that pair to my sister Wendy, and she loved them. I thought they turned out really good. So finished object number 2. Okay, I realized that I might be cutting off the top part of my bun here as I'm filming, and also the office chair that I'm sitting on is a little squeaky, so I apologize for that if you've been hearing that throughout the video. Anyways, before I get on to works in progress, I will pop in some footage of my little outing here today in St. John's, and then I'll meet you back here to talk about whips. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that my favorite place to wander about is St. John's, Newfoundland. And I decided to pop over to a brand new yarn shop that has been open for less than 2 weeks. And it was through a friend of a friend. I think I already mentioned this in the introduction. But Heather of Olonic Knits, she's also a Newfoundlander. And she has a dream of opening her own yarn shop in a beautiful place called Bonavista. And she had posted in her Instagram stories about her friend Leah, who has also opened a yarn shop in St. John's. So I decided once I found out I was going there to St. John's to go over and have a look. It turns out the yarn shop's called Stitchcraft, and it's only a 10-minute walk from the hotel. It is nestled behind the Neils building in a beautiful shared space called Covered Up. And this shop is really neat. It has so many unique gifts, all the European flair, unique things that I love, you know, tea towels that are hand stitched, and it's got cards, decorations. She really had out quite a bit of the Christmas decor, which I loved. And she was bringing in some pine boughs for a craft show she has upcoming, the owner of Covered Up. So the place smelled wonderful. Here's Leah and Stitchcraft, which only had its grand opening less than 2 weeks ago on October 21st. She is a big fan of the natural wools and has a collection of Iztecs, so Icelandic wool. She also has some knitting for Olive and was stocking up some embroidery kits, so hook, line, and tinker kits. She has some notions, and there was workshops coming up as well. So I know that she has a passion for her yarn shop, and I congratulate her on following her dreams. So great job, Leah. Thanks for coming in and bringing your little one. And I may have picked up some yarn as a result of her inspiration. I hope you enjoyed my footage of this budding little yarn shop. In a previous episode to Newfoundland, I'd shown a yarn shop called Cast On, Cast Off, which has been relocated way out of town in a place called Triton, and also Nonia, which is a famous place in downtown St. John's. Next time I come back, and of course I'm already planning my next time, I'd like to visit Wool Trends and Windswept Fibers. I had grabbed a coffee, had some caffeine because that is usually part of my jam, and I saw my opportunity to cast on for my Halibut sweater. And there was nobody else on the harbor that day. It was just me, a picnic table, and a big ship sitting there. So I sat down and I began my cast on for my Halibut sweater for my cow. Oh, St. John's, it just never disappoints me, and I love it every single time. Now, having said that, I think I've only ever been here once in the dead of winter. That was not so great, but today was wonderful, and I hope you enjoyed my footage. Next up, works in progress. I'll get right on it because the light is fading very quickly, and I have 3 things to show you. The first of which is a gift that I'm making for my daughter for Christmas. She's 22 years old, and she saw a TikTok of Chantal, also known as Knitatude. She was demonstrating in this TikTok how to put on her Eyelet sweater scarf, and my daughter loved it and sent it to me and asked if I'd make it for her, and I'm like, yeah, of course, I love making stuff for her. She's very knit-worthy, my daughter. So the thing was, I couldn't just get the pattern. It was a collaboration between Knititude and WeAreKnitters. So I went onto the WeAreKnitters website, and I did buy the kit so that I could get the Easy Eyelet sweater scarf pattern. And the kit came, and I got 5 balls of the color my daughter chose, which is the natural colorway of the Maripaka. And Maripaka is 20% baby alpaca wool and 80% superwash merino, 153 yards per 100 grams. So it's it's an Aran weight type yarn. The recommended needle sizes are US 8 to 10 or 5.5 to 6 millimeters, I believe. Anyway, I got started on it. I've got one arm done, and I seamed it already so that I can try it on as I go, and I'll explain that. And then I've got this much into the main part, which is the eyelet stockinette section. And what essentially, you're knitting it flat in the ribbing, and then you seam it later. So I did that. And then it wraps twice around, and then you put your arm on the other side, and voila. I think my daughter's going to absolutely rock it. It's going very, very quickly. I'm having a hard time with the pattern, I gotta be honest. I've made patterns by Chantal before, so the collaboration between her and WeAreKnitters, I'm assuming that they're transcribed their version of taking her pattern and putting it out in their version. Just it leaves a lot to be desired, I gotta be honest. It is it's kind of silly with how it describes what to do, and it just puts in terms of like how many rows rather than give measurements. And so that's what I'm finding, that it's not very helpful. The schematic itself is a rectangle. And I'm like, I think the key in this whole sweater scarf thing is going to be the length, so that your arms can go through the sides, and then it just wraps twice, but not too drapey and hanging there. So yeah, I could reach out to either Chantal or WeAreKnitters probably and just ask for some clarification on their schematic, because there's like varying sizes, and I'm making the smallest size for my daughter. And at one point you're supposed to work up to 333 rows, and I'm like, pardon? Like, who's gonna write out 333 and like check it off or even count those afterwards? I need length here, people, like length. So, because it's very quick as far as the needle size, which the pattern recommended a US 11 7 millimeter, which I think would have been way too gapey. I am getting gauge, and I'd gone down to a 6.5 millimeter and a US 10.5. I'm glad I made that choice to go down so that wouldn't be too open. And this is it. This is I don't know, I'm probably a quarter of the way through the Easy Eyelet sweater scarf. So stay tuned on that one. I'll keep working on it. I think I'm in good shape to have it done for Christmas for sure. All right, work in progress number 2. Not a lot to show here, but you're gonna have to envision it with me, because I fell in love with this hat the second I saw it. I'm making the Houll hat. I think that's how you say it. Houll by Ella Gordon Designs. And so far, I have cast on, and I'm working on the ribbing for the brim. And I'm making the light version. I do also like the black version, but I just, the way the colors fade and the way she's put them together is, I think, so mesmerizing. And I'm kind of craving another. I didn't make the Shetland Wool Week hat this year, the Fleur hat. Really want to make that. And so I was kind of looking around, because I have some Jameson and Smith 2-ply, which is what it calls for. And so I have a fair bit of that, but I needed the exact colorways, like 100%. So I went on a few different shops. I went on Stash in Calgary. I went to Wabi Sabi in Ottawa, and I got the colors that it calls for. And I can't wait to keep working on that. I know myself, and when I get into a colorwork pattern, especially one is mesmerizing and starts to form and show the fading, I won't be able to stop. So that's work in progress number 2. However, it's gonna have to hang tight, because today, work in progress number 3 is the beginning of the Just for the Halibut cowl. So myself and Janine and Darlene of the Cut Bank Girls podcast They are up in British Columbia in a place called Prince George. And yeah, we decided let's just do a cowl just for the halibut. And we'll make something from Caitlin Hunter's Halibut series and invite our friends to do the same. So I hope that maybe you'll participate. I mean, this time of year, you may be feeling like, I don't have time for a pullover or color work, anything. But the pattern in the halibut motif, I think, is just fascinating. It's a good challenge. And there's a cowl, and there's a hat, and there's mittens, and then there's a pullover. So for the cowl itself, I'll just briefly explain. We're actually going to compile some prizes. I'll give a few things, and Janine and Darlene, Darlene actually owns a yarn shop in Prince George, so I'm sure she'll put together some prizing for finished objects. They have a Ravelry page called the Cut Bank Girls, where there'll be a finished off thread where you can post your finished object for a prize, or you can just knit for fun. And I'll do an Instagram, I'll select a winner from Instagram, and if you use just for the halibut cowl, and post it up on the Instagram. So the cowl started today, and it's going from November 1st to December 15th, and I started. So this is the beginnings. I am so pleased that I found the yarn that I feel is going to make the best one for myself. I was initially, and I think I showed last time, that I was going to try and use Let Lopey to make it, and I wasn't able to get the gauge. And also I was noticing in the pattern itself, you can make a turtleneck or a mock turtleneck or a crew neck, and I think I'd like a mock neck. So I love Let Lopey, but for me that's I need an underlayer for that. So to have that right close to my neck, I was like, that's not gonna work. So I managed to find yarn that I am super pleased with. So this was my gauge swatch, which I started doing the chart from the cowl. Let's see, how does it go? That was cast off side. And for me, what I'm finding with Caitlin Hunter is that I usually get one more stitch than her gauge. So for example, this calls for 20 stitches over 4 inches, and I get 21. And I think that's a consistent thing for me and her. But that's okay, because the pattern has ease written into it, and it can be oversized. I think row gauge might be a thing, so that your fish don't hang too low, or that it's not too drapey. But the ones I've seen, I think I'm going to be in good shape, especially based on working the chart so far. This requires concentration, and I like that, because it's not a consistent repeat. You're doing something different pretty much every row or every other row. So I just separated each thing with a stitch marker to keep me focused. And I found a worsted weight yarn from Blue Sky Fibers, and it's wool stock worsted. And check this out for colorway names. Like, what? How more appropriate could that be? This is called Gray Harbour, my contrast color. And this is called Stormy Seas, or Stormy Sea, I believe. Okay, I'm totally wrong. Midnight Sea. So it's like a deep navy blue with like bits of teal. I think you can see that. It literally matches the Harbour out front right now. And it's very, very soft. It's 100% Highland wool. And my gauge was 1 stitch more than Caitlin Hunter's, but I'm going to make size 2. And I think that's going to work out well. It's a top-down construction, so I'll be able to try it on as I go. And having worked on this gauge swatch / the first of the, like half of the cowl, this is half of the chart. Yeah, there was like 25 more rounds and it would have been the full cowl, but I only ordered, I shouldn't say only, but I'm within a range that I think is going to be enough yardage to make it. I ordered these from Needles in the Hay, which is in Ontario, Canada, and they carry some great stuff, including, I think, like a mega ball. So this was like 150 gram ball, so of this wool. So I ordered 3 and then just 1, and it made these giant cakes. that are super soft. It's a nice ply. It's like I think it's a 2-ply, very light twist. This might show it. Yeah, so lofty. And when I blocked this, it just got super soft. And it was soft to begin with, but it got even softer. And I think it's fabulous for color work. Here's the thing, I forgot to bring my thimble when I was swatching this. I was on the road. So I did it the way I usually do it, which is hold the contrast in my left and the main color in my right. And that's what I used to do my gauge swatch. So I think I have to stick with that or I should stick with that for the pullover as well. But my floats don't look too bad doing it the old way, although I am definitely a fan of that thimble. But yeah, I think I'll stick to just doing it. They're not quite as neat as, actually this side kind of looks. But I find with the thimble, if you've ever seen me chat about that before, the Norwegian thimble, I actually don't catch floats at all. Even like if it's a 10 stitch, like before the next color change. And this, actually I found that the longest, what was the longest gap? I think the longest gap that I saw was like 10 between a color change. And I'm pretty comfortable catching it on like say the 5th stitch. But if I was using the thimble, I probably wouldn't catch it at all. So anyway, that's my work in progress number 3 just for the Halibut Cal. And it's, yeah, that's imminent. That's coming up right next. And okay, before I let you go, I wanted to show you what I got from my outing today here. I got this very, very cute tote. Chickens. I couldn't resist, and it was 50% off. Handmade. I think it's the cutest thing, and it held all my stuff really nicely. Not all my stuff, I didn't get that much. I bought a couple of really cute ornaments that are handmade. I just thought that was super sweet. And then this little goose. A friend of mine, her and I usually give ornaments to each other, or I usually give her an ornament each year. And I don't think she actually watches like the full podcast, but yeah, one of these will be for my friend. And then I got something I hadn't seen in person before. This is what I got from Stitchcraft. I got the Einband, which is from Istex. It's their fingering weight wool, the Icelandic wool. The light is fading, but it's basically like a dark gray, very dark gray. And I was thinking of trying a pair of socks with these, using mohair for strength, like silk mohair, but to try making natural socks and see how they hold up. So that's why I got those. Next up, I have to share this incredibly generous gift that was sent to me. When we got back from our holiday, it was really hard because we hadn't been away in so long, and Dave and I had the nicest, most relaxing time. It was very, it was a vacation where you're like, I feel rested and I feel grateful, and it was really, really good for the soul. So we came back and I had a bit of a drop. I was like, that was so good. But I wasn't depressed or anything, but I had a very nice boost when I went to the mailbox and found a note. And it was a package. I'd been chatting back and forth with Eva of the Scottish Yarn Festival. And I know she had just been at the Wool and Folk Festival in Rhinebeck and traveled, and I kind of hadn't really thought too much about it. And all of a sudden this package shows up. So she sent me 2 skeins of her custom wool, her custom yarn that she has milled in Scotland. 2 of these gorgeous 4-ply skeins. It's 80% Shetland and 20% Cheviot. And the colorway is called Fraser. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that just blew my mind. I think it's so very beautiful. And I think it's going to need to be a colorwork garment. maybe by a Scottish designer to do it justice. The story behind this is beautifully told by Eva. I would recommend going to check out when she discusses it. It's pinned to the top of her Instagram, I believe, which is the Scottish Yarn Festival. And yeah, I was just very grateful for that. So thank you, Eva, for this beautiful gift of your hand and heart and soul that went into it. And each of the colorways are named after Scottish clans. This is Clan Fraser, and I love it. Sorry, I won't do bad Scottish accent, sorry. I'm obviously tired. Hey, the last little thing I'm gonna talk about, I was wanting to share some of my thoughts around like gift knitting or like festive knitting. And I'm thinking about making a Christmas sweater. So I don't have one. And this little number, the Festive Yoke pullover by Skein-Dare Knits, is something that's been in my queue, and I've been looking at it. And if you recall, I had a not good experience when I was trying to knit up a sweater using Rama Fennel, sorry. And it wasn't the yarn, it was nothing to do with that at all. It was just my increasing was funky, and it didn't fit well, so I frogged like almost a whole yoke. And I was looking at that pattern, and I'm like, I could make a green and white Christmas sweater with the Rama, which is also one of the recommended yarns that she puts as like an alternative. So yay! Thank you to anyone who has actually been, I don't promote it, or I don't put it on my Instagram or anything, but I have a couple of patterns that I published. And around this time of year, my cowl and my hat, my Northwind cowl and my Northwind hat pattern, people find them on Ravelry or on Etsy, and they buy them, and I get money in my PayPal account. And whenever that happens, I'm like, I instantly spend it on another designer's pattern. So I was like, yay. So someone bought my Northwind cowl, and I went on and bought the Festive Yoke pullover. Let me know if you've made it or what your favorite Christmas or festive knit is. I'd be curious to know what everyone's up to. Please, I love reading all the comments, and I feel like I've been chatting blah, 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 but it's the engagement and the back and forth on this channel that I love as well. So next up, my other inspiration, and I've had this for probably 4 or more years, is Sven Scandinavian, a knitted friend. I think I'd seen kits from Susan B. Anderson. Yeah, I think that's where I saw it first. And it turns out that now, this is copyright 1983, this booklet. I'm actually glad I have a hard copy. It's kind of nice. But there's Sven and Solveig, his wife or his woman, his partner. And I just think they're the cutest little festive people, dolls, toys that I would love to, I'd like to make one with, you can use all these scrap yarns or, sock stuff that I've got kicking around. I think that'd be a really fun thing to make. So that's where I'm at. And that's what I've got for you today. It's getting dark, it's getting cold, and the chowder is calling. So I'm going to wrap this up, and thank you for spending the time with me here today on the Knitty Stew. I hope you're staying healthy and happy. And then next time we meet, hopefully all is well till then. Thank you so much for being here and part of the Knitty Stew. We'll see you next time. Bye.